All right. So these are your water cycle notes. Basically, on your notes, all you're going to do is have a piece of paper in front of you, and it's got several vocabulary words. Okay, and you're just going to write down in those boxes what I tell you to write down. It'll be on this slide or on the slides. All right. So let's begin. Okay. Oop, water cycle. Sorry. So a single drop of water can change states of matter by traveling in the sky. It can go underground. It can travel through rivers. It can stay in the ocean, and it can even go inside of plants. Did you know that? All right. So basically all you're going to do is copy down the vocabulary, which I know some of the words we've already done last week. However, I want you to focus on these words specifically for this week, the water cycle week. All right, the first one is evaporation. So on your page, look for the word evaporation. Go ahead and pause the video. And I want you to write down, occurs when heat from the sun causes liquid water to become water vapor, and the water vapor rises. So what this means is that the sun, of course, we all know is the beginning of our water cycle. Without the sun, we'd have no water cycle. And it heats up the water on the earth, okay, which causes it to go from a liquid into water vapor, which is a water vapor, just a fancy word for saying gas, okay? And that gas just rises into the air. All right. Next. I guess I can't do that. So then let's talk about condensation, which should be your next. Find the word that talks about condensation, or on your paper says condensation. And all condensation is when the water vapor gets cooler and it changes back into a liquid. So remember we talked about when you're in the shower and all the steam is coming out of the shower and all that steam hits that mirror. That's pretty cold actually. And then that steam, that water vapor hits that mirror and it turns back into water droplets. And that's why it looks like it's all watery. Okay, when you go out in the car to get in the car in the morning and the car is all wet, all right, because the ground has water on it. Maybe water you can't see, but the water is trapped inside the leaves of your grass, okay, or the leaves that are on the ground. And so that water overnight evaporates out. It's actually called transpiration, which we'll get to that. And when it does, it hits the cold car that's been sitting there all night, that vapor, and it turns back into water. Okay. Okay. Oop. Next word is precipitation. And precipitation, okay, so find that word and write occurs when water falls from clouds. So there's 4 main types of precipitation. You need to know snow, sleet, rain, and hail. Snow is snow. I think we all know what snow is, which is just cold water that comes down in a fluffy sense. Sleet, that's freezing rain. That's rain that comes down in like sheets of like hard sticks of rain. It really hurts when you get hit with sleet. Rain is rain. And hail is actually balls of water that form into like golf ball sizes, or sometimes I've seen them in like really big softball sizes, baseball sizes. They get really big. And it's literally balls of ice falling from the sky. I remember one time when my kids were really little, we had a bunch of hail. This is when we lived in Missouri, and I ran outside while getting pelted with balls of ice. And I ran outside and I got some of the hail and I ran inside the house really quick. And I threw it in the freezer because I wanted it to keep it. It was so cool, like to see nature do that. Just take a chunk of it, looked like ice cubes. Like, you know, I put my cup underneath the ice dispenser at home and all this ice falls out. That's what was falling out of the sky. It was so cool, yet scary at the same time, because that ice falling all the way down to earth can do some serious damages to like houses and cars and people and stuff. So while it's really cool, it's still pretty scary. All right, so transpiration. That's that word I told you we'll get to. Transpiration occurs when water vapor, remember, that's just the gas, is released from the leaves of plants. So let's say it rained yesterday and the grass has gotten wet. But to your perception, it's now a day later and all the water's dried up. Okay, no more water on the streets, no more water that you can see on the ground. Okay, but it's actually trapped inside the leaves of the grass. Okay, and transpiration just means it's evaporating out of that. That's it. The leaves are actually evaporating. Not the leaf, but the water in the leaf, okay, is evaporating. All right, next, runoff. What is runoff? Well, runoff is when excess water, rainwater, flows to a water source. So think of a mountain, side of a mountain. It's going to rain at the top of the mountain, and that water's got to dribble all down. It's called runoff, and it's going to go into another water source. All right, water just drain. It always drains. Gravity pulling that water down, down, down into another area where there's pooled water. Now, percolation. This is a word that you should know. It won't hurt you to know it. However, I don't think you should see it on the STAR test, but you never know. So, percolation. Find that word. And then you're going to write occurs when precipitation, that means the wetness, stuff that comes out of the sky, it actually goes underground through the soil. So like it rained, let's say it rained today, and the grass and the ground got all wet, and some of the water that puddled on the ground, think about behind where our portable used to be, okay? Where our portable was. It rained and it flooded back there all the time, right? Well, some of that water would run off into a lower location, and then the water that seeped into the ground, okay, because ground just absorbs water, that's called percolation. And that's why water is always underground. And last, I think this is the last word, accumulation. Accumulation occurs when precipitation is stored in a lake, river, or ocean. So you've got that runoff, right, that comes down, and then it's stored somewhere. That's called accumulation. So think about it. Lake Belton. Every time it rains, water just runs off into Lake Belton. Okay? And it accumulates. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why sometimes Lake Belton is so flooded that they can't open it up during the summertime. They have to close Lake Belton, and people can't go swimming or fishing or boating because the water level's too high. Okay? Now, I think we're done with our vocab. I just want to go through the rest of these notes with you. So let's look at some different things drops of water can do. Look at your picture here. Got the water cycle, right? Where's the center of the water cycle? What starts it all off? The sun. Okay. So let's start with the sun. And then what's in front of the sun? The clouds. So let's start with the clouds. The clouds collect all that water that had evaporated, and it is called condensation. So condensation is when the water vapor hits some cold air and it starts turning back into water. Okay. And then you go over and you've got where over here. Okay. So it collects in the air, condensation, the wind moves it, and boom. Now you've got, what is this called? When it rains, snows, sleet, or hail? Precipitation. Okay. So you've got precipitation, and precipitation is just the water coming back down to the earth. And then look, it's high up on this, sorry, my dog is trying to say hi, puppy. She's trying to get into my business here. So if you look at where the rain is coming down, okay, on the mountain, the excess water is running off. It's running off, see that word, runoff, into this big open area where it accumulates, okay? And then it evaporates back up to the sky. Now, we've just gone through this cycle, but what was this word right here called? Look, you got trees, and you got It's showing you the arrows going up. What is evaporating? What is it called? When water vapor evaporates from trees or plants or any leaf. Starts with a T. Transpiration. Good. Okay. So 2 things can happen to precipitation. It might fall into a body of water, or it might fall onto Earth's surface. Pretty simple. Water can be consumed by humans and animals. That means drank. Okay. Water might be frozen and stored in a glacier. That's pretty. Water might percolate underground through the soil. Okay, so let's say this puddle of water right here runs off, but do you see how the soil's all wet? Where does that water go? Does it evaporate? It can, but what else? It can be absorbed through the ground, through the soil, which is called percolation. Percolate. And then there's that runoff that we talked about, where the water just runs off the hill. And on the ground, water might become runoff and flow to a river, ocean, or lake. Look at this alley. I think it's an alley. Looks like an alley. Back alley. Creepy back alleys. And see how do you see how the concrete is kind of slanted up on this side, slanted up on this side, right? And so it kind of makes a V or shape down here, and all the water. Do you see where the water is like pulled? And then it's all running off. Okay. And transpiration, that's that word, that new word you may or may not know. And that's just where water is evaporating from the plant, trees, and leaves. So here's how that works. Water enters plants through their roots, and then plants use water during photosynthesis. So they use the water that they use up the water that they need, and then the rest of it is released from a plant. Okay. Evaporation. Y'all look at this thing. Callie, say hi. All right. Water returns to Earth's atmosphere during evaporation. Water evaporates or becomes water vapor due to heat from the sun. Thank you, sun. Condensation. During condensation, water vapor cools, becoming liquid water. Precipitation. Water falls to Earth as precipitation, and the cycle begins again, over and over and over. All right, and that's it. All right. Let me know when you finish this and you have your words done in your journal or on your sheet of paper, and then bring it to me for checkoff, and you can glue it into your journal. All right, bye. Stop. I want you to stop.